month of ابونا. We are coming closer and closer to the end of this year, this Coptic year, and today is the fourth Sunday of the blessed month of ابونا. The liturgy gospel is from St. Luke, chapter 6, and it begins with one of probably the most challenging commandments of the New Testament. Many people think it's extremely hard to fulfill this commandment. What is it? Love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, and pray for those who spitefully use you. This is Luke 6, verse 27. One might ask or wonder, how can I fulfill or how can I love my enemy while I'm still struggling with other commandments, such as you shall love the Lord your God of all your heart and your neighbor as yourself. We haven't even achieved a bit of this easy commandment. Love God and love your neighbor. And now you're asking me to love my enemy? It certainly is a hard one to fulfill. We wouldn't disagree about this. But is it impossible? Is it impossible? Certainly not. Why not? Because St. Paul confirmed in Philippians, his epistle to the Philippians, chapter 4, verse 13, when he said, I can do all things, through whom? Through Christ, who strengthens me. So, I can do all things. Nothing is impossible for me as long as I'm doing this through Christ. So we are not here today to discuss the doability of Christ's commandments, because we initially agree that everything is possible in God. He is the one who gives me the strength. But we are here to learn how we can fulfill His commandments for the glory of His name. And as a matter of fact, the cornerstone for doing this is praying God to help us answer three very important questions. Three important questions that we need to answer, and we need to do this honestly in order to achieve the fulfillment of this kind of hard commandment. What are these questions? The first is what, and the second is who, and the third is how. Very easy. Okay? What, who, and how. Number one, what? We need to ask ourselves what caused the enmity. What caused the enmity? We all have enemies or kind of people who dislike us. So let us ask ourselves, what caused the enmity? And let's see one of the examples in the Holy Bible. You know, there are two brothers. Not brothers, they were twins. Twins of the Old Testament. The most famous twins are Jacob and Esau. Exactly, Jacob and Esau. They were not just brothers, they were twins. Yet, the enmity between the two of them lasted for over 20 years. Why? Because Jacob took advantage of his brother's hunger, and he purchased his birthright with a simple meal of bread and lentils. That's what Jacob did. That wasn't all. As a matter of fact, he also deceived his elderly father and stole the blessings. And Jacob was left empty-handed. Esau was left empty-handed. Jacob fled to the land of war, and there he got married, and he became the father of 12 sons and a daughter. Then after 20 years, what did he do? He decided to go back to the land of Canaan. But who was waiting for them to revenge? Esau was waiting for them to revenge. He was waiting for 20 long years, waiting for this one moment. When Jacob learned about this, he got scared. He didn't know what to do except spending the whole night in prayer, to the extent that God sent his angel to Jacob to give him some support. And then when Jacob realized his fault, he realized what he did, what did he do? He started to send messengers of his servants with generous gifts to his brother Esau. These were messengers of peace with generous gifts to his brother. And when the two brothers met, we can read this in Genesis 33 verse 4. The book says, Esau ran to meet him. It means ran to meet Jacob, and embraced him, and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept. Let's hear this again. When the two brothers met, after 20 years of enmity, Esau ran and met him, and embraced him, and fell on his neck, and kissed him, and they wept. So let us ask ourselves, what caused the enmity? It could have been something I said or something I did without realizing it. And when I know my fault, I can easily apologize and reconcile with my enemy. So this is the first question. What's the first question? What? Let's remember this. The second question is who? The first is what? The second is? The second is? Who? Wake up. Okay. Let us ask ourselves, who is my real enemy? Is it the one who hates, who curses, or spitefully uses others? Or is this person just a tool manipulated by the devil to harm, destroy, or even kill the children of God? This person, the one, or the enemy, is like a man infected with a deadly virus. So, does this man deserve condemnation or rather pity? If you've heard of a man who is infected with the AIDS virus, من فضلكم جرن المعمودية ممنوع حد يقف عليه من الأطفال. بالنسبة للأمهات جرن المعمودية، وسبق نبهنا قبل كده معلش انه ده مكان مقدس وعليه زيت ميرون، فبالتالي ما ينفعش ان حد من الاطفال يقف على جرن المعمودية. معلش نراعي الحتة دي برجاء. الارض واسعة، مش لازم نقف على جرن المعمودية. اشكركم. So what is it that we were saying? If you heard that a man is infected with the AIDS virus, would you feel sorry for him? Or would you start condemning and judging? He did this and this, and that's why he got infected. He deserves pity. He deserves sorrow. So, as we all know, there is another example from the Old Testament that King Saul, the first Jewish king, was demon-possessed. He was possessed by an unclean spirit. And that's why he sought to kill David. And he kept following him in the wilderness from mountain to mountain and from valley to valley for over 10 years. He kept pursuing him. He sought to kill David because he was demon-possessed. One day, Saul got into one of the caves. It was a deep cave. And he went there seeking some rest. But he did not know something. He didn't realize that David and his men were hiding in the deep recesses of that same cave. It was dark and he couldn't see any of them. The cave was deep. David and his men were hiding in the rear part of the cave, and King Saul went inside looking for some rest. What happened? David's men thought, wow, this is the best chance to get rid of our enemy once and for all. And he advised David to go and kill him. But did David kill him? As a matter of fact, no. He rebuked them for what they said. And he told them, the Lord forbid that I should stretch out my hand against him, the anointed of the Lord. And he prevented anyone from inflicting any harm to the king, but rather saved his life. So instead of condemning our enemies, let us pray God that he may release them from their slavery to Satan, that they may be converted, instead of being enemies, they may be converted into some real good friends. So the first question is, what? Exactly. Now we know that what caused the enmity. And the second question is, who? Now that we know who my real enemy is. Who is my real enemy? The enemy, the person, or the devil, the adversary who uses and manipulates them? The devil. Now we need to know the third question. How? Exactly. How can we express God's love, the love of Jesus, to those whom we thought that they are enemies? St. Paul said in Romans 12:20, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. And if he is thirsty, then give him drink. Is it easy or hard? Easy to say, but certainly very hard to do. If your enemy is hungry, feed him. And if he is thirsty, give him drink. Did this really happen? It happened. We can read in the book of the Paradise of the Fathers about a great monk. What's his name? His name is Pachomius. Have you ever heard of this man before? Pachomius? He's comparable to Antonius, by the way. Antonius is the father of monasticism. But Antonius founded a system in the monastic life. It's called the solitary life, where each monk is living in a separate cave or cell by himself. These caves were distant from each other, and they gathered once a week in a church, a small church, to celebrate the liturgy and partake of the communion. But Pachomius, he founded a different style. He was a man of the army, and he founded the lifestyle in monasticism called the Koinonia, or the communion monastic life. So, as a matter of fact, where all the monks gather inside the monastery. That's what we see now. So Pachomius, as a matter of fact, was a great monk in the history of the church and monasticism. What about this? Pachomius was not a Christian at the beginning. He was born to pagan parents around the end of the 3rd century, and that was in Upper Egypt. He enlisted, when he grew up, he enlisted in the army and set out with his platoon to suppress a revolt. There was a revolt against the emperor, so he set out with a platoon to suppress this revolt. On their way back, everybody was very exhausted. They were hungry, they were thirsty, and really didn't have any food or drink. So they took a shelter at one of the cities. The city was called Esna. It's still located under the same name in Upper Egypt till today. To their surprise, they found all the people of this city coming out to greet the Roman soldiers. By the way, at this time the Christians were persecuted. And who persecuted them? The Roman soldiers. But they found all the people of that city coming out with joy to greet the soldiers. Not just this, but they brought with them generous amounts of food and drink. So Pachomius wondered, well, these people, why are they acting like this? He was told they were Christians and they were fulfilling the commandments of their Christ. He is the one who told them, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. And if he is thirsty, give him a drink. Exactly. So they are fulfilling the commandments of their Christ. Pachomius thought to himself, how could this be? These people are Christians and we are their persecutors. At a certain day we might come back to kill them all or to hurt them in any ways. But they gave us food and drink and preserved our lives. And for this reason he started to go. Actually, he enrolled in the catechumen's list. He became eventually a Christian and got baptized. And after a while he became a great monk, as we just said, and the founder of the communion monastic life. Now that we've come to the conclusion of our sermon, but let us remember, whenever we deal with anyone, any enemy, could it possibly be me who caused it? What is the cause of this enmity? This is number one. Number two, who is my real enemy? The one that I see, or the devil who manipulates him? this man actually, or this lady, deserves a lot of prayer that they might be saved and released from the bondage of the enemy. And number 3, if this is the case, then I must show the love of Christ to those who are under the bondage of slavery. I must show them the love of God. And by doing this, they're going to be converted from enemies, bad ones, into good friends. Glory be to God forever and ever.